It's taken a while, but Kia finally has an electric vehicle in its Australian lineup, and this is it. It's called the Niro. And yes, it is fully electric, a pure EV. But the Niro is a lot more than that. It's also an eco-focused family that also includes a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. That's 3-in-1, just like the Hyundai Ioniq, except that the Niro is a lot closer in its DNA to the Hyundai Kona, at least as an electric vehicle. Now that's not a bad thing. The two share an electric motor, batteries, and they're the same basic size. The Niro Electric, as it's called, gets a 64 kilowatt hour battery, which is good enough for a claimed 455 kilometres between charges. Now I've been living with this thing now for a few days, and the claim seems pretty close to the mark. I reckon you'll get fairly close to that, certainly north of 400 kilometres. DC charging, it'll take up to 100 kilowatts of power, so you can lower that charging time to less than 1 hour. Now with that 455k range, that gives you a fair bit to motor on. I mean, you can do some pretty big trips, throw the 1 hour charge in the middle and keep moving. But let's face it, the Niro is a compact SUV. It's about zipping around town, it's about suburban duties predominantly, and for that it does a pretty nice job. You got 150 kilowatts from the electric motor, 395 newton meters, and as always with an EV, it's that torque that does so much of the work, so much of that shove when you go to first hit the accelerator. There's also sport mode, which if you dial that up, just gives it a little bit more vigor in the accelerator, so when you do step on it, it sort of reacts that little bit quicker. It's to the point where it's sort of testing the boundaries of what it's capable of to some extent. All the grunt goes through the front wheels, so sometimes when you're accelerating out of a corner, for example, it's not too hard to trigger the traction control. You've got less weight on that inside wheel, and all of a sudden it's a little chirp and a correction as it tries to contain things. But for the most part, it does a pretty good job. It's got some decent Michelin tyres on there. The dynamics, the handling, you've got so much weight down low, so it actually settles pretty nicely around corners. Now, Kia typically makes a pretty big deal about tuning its suspension for local conditions, getting them just right for Australian roads. But this car's actually missed out, which is all due to timing. So yes, the Niro is new for Australia, but it's actually a pretty old car. It's in the twilight of its life cycle. So it's only going to be on sale in Australia for about 12 months. Mid-2022, it should theoretically be replaced by an all-new model. So it's fairly short-lived, and blame all of that on availability, on the ability for Kia's headquarters to supply Australia. Short story was, Australia had its hand up for this car years ago. They wanted it, they wanted an electric vehicle, but demand was pretty hot around the world, so unfortunately we missed out. Not that it would have been a massive seller. I mean, Kia's very much suggesting that this car will be a niche player, at least compared with the rest of its range. They're talking about 100 odd sales a month. Now, most of those are going to be the hybrid models, both the regular hybrid and the plug-in one. This electric one, about 20% of sales. So in that year that it's going to be on sale, you're looking at around about 250 cars. So very niche indeed by Kia standards. But the Niro's significance goes way beyond those modest sales. It's about understanding the tech and learning more about exactly what electric car buyers want. It also sets the scene for a far bigger play on EVs from Kia. Something that starts with the EV6, a ground-up electric vehicle, and it's the start of an all-new family of electric cars for Kia. Now that's when things will get really interesting in the Kia electric car showroom.